do a bunch of stuff. I love that tune.
Hello and welcome to Field Talk. I am the Field, also known as Field Affairs. Here to remind you that socialism always ends in starvation and genocide. Come to the show that Jack does not want you to see. Now tonight is the second of the call-in variety shows, and we have Space Battleship, who will be arriving very shortly to talk about, I believe, the Internet Bill of Rights, and present some arguments, I think, against it. And I will attempt to formulate arguments in favor of it, as I am being informed at the same time. So, in just a few minutes. So, please don't click on that link if you're not Space Battleship. And please do click on that link if you are, in fact, Space Battleship, which would be very, very helpful. Okay, so I will move the chat there. Good. Alright, it says I am still currently the only one there. And as I have said, I think that Saturdays as a day for interviews will be very, very fun. I'm quite looking forward to it. Hello, B West. It looks like the thing I thought was happening is actually happening, instead of not happening, as I thought it was going to not happen earlier before, when we were having a chat. I know I'm confusing people, but I am trying to keep the air from being dead while I'm waiting for the guests to arrive. Please do. Ah, excellent. Have you got headphones? I will go to position. Hello. Hello? Oh, never mind. Never mind. Terribly sorry, guys. Terribly sorry. I will attempt to contact our guest via a different messaging service. Oh, no, I shouldn't do that, should I? Hello.
Hello?
Is this Space Battleship?
Yes.
Excellent. How would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Um, yeah, I laugh as Space Battleship from New Zealand. I sent you a message on Gab because I actually wanted to postpone this for a week, but it's all right.
Yeah,
just go ahead.
I did see that, and which is why I said you could just jump in if you want.
Yeah. No, because I've seen these, so I wanted to delve into more of what other people are saying.
Okay.
About their requirements for an Internet Bill of Rights, and what's really interesting is Australia doesn't have a Bill of Rights.
Like at all.
They've got arguments against it, and yeah, I just wanted to really school myself up on that. It's quite interesting the arguments they make against having a Bill of Rights as opposed to just legislating things, and it's about who you want to be the authority of power.
Okay.
So and the other thing I need to school myself on is actually the American sort of political system, because in Australia, their argument is if you have a Bill of Rights, the authority for that are unelected judges, whereas their current sort of situation is that Parliament gets to sort of make changes and amendments, and they can do that democratically. And a lot of their Bill of Rights.
Yeah, that's not the argument that Americans make at all. We are subjecting ourselves to government judges via government via judges. We are subjecting the judges and the legislature to sorry, I'm trying to figure out the best way to display at the moment. Oh well, it's not displaying my face, unfortunately. Oh, never mind.
Well, there's this thing where it's like, do you want to is it a regulation? Is a Bill of Rights a regulation? And to that I say no, because you're not restricting anything. You're restricting abuse of power.
The thing is, what the Bill of Rights does in America anyway, and what the idea of a Bill of Rights was to place limits on the legislature, executive, and judicial bodies of the government with respect to the rights of the people, specifically enumerated as sanctified and inviolable.
Yeah. So it's not quite the same as a regulation, you know. If you take the building analogy, a right would allow you to erect a building, but a regulation will tell you how high, you know, a height limit for that building.
Yeah, correct. The regulations are limits on the individual's exercise of their rights.
Because I've seen people on the left say it's ironic that libertarians want to regulate the internet, which is a non-argument, I think.
Well, no, I haven't seen a very good formulation of what an Internet Bill of Rights would look like yet. I'm just saying.
No, I don't think anyone's discussed that. But if you look at how you could use the internet maybe 5 or 10 years ago, now it's very different. Now you get kicked off for saying the wrong word.
Oh, that's yeah, and I think that's quite a problem. And I think that there's a lot of non-market influences that are causing that to happen, e.g., the unelected superstate body known as the EU.
Yeah, well, there's the argument against having it as a Bill of Rights, because it's not something that Parliament can change when needed.
No, it's it's pretty obvious at this point that something needs to be done about these corporations being abusive to their customers. to their users, who are not necessarily their customers. But what that should look like is a point of contention with a lot of conservatives and libertarians, and nobody has a really good idea of what it should or would look like.
Do you think ISIS should be allowed on Twitter and Facebook?
Well, I think that they should be subject to the same rules as everyone else, and they shouldn't be given special treatment.
Yeah, because this is sort of Western homegrown terrorism, is where you get some Muslim kid gets picked on by school, and then he goes on Facebook and he finds these new friends, and they're not palatable people, and right now they're getting kicked off. Some of them. There are complaints that not enough of them are being kicked off, and at the same time, you want your own sort of personal freedom and liberty, and not being subjected to thought crimes. So, I mean, the argument for it is the one argument is to say, well, to combat bad speech, we just need more free speech, right?
Yeah.
But how can you do that in these little isolated internet bubbles where people get indoctrinated with ideas that cause them to go and cause mass murder and things like that?
Well, that's not what causes people to go and mass murder in the first place.
Oh, there's lots of reasons.
When you're talking about radical terrorism, like the radicalization happens 80%, like per individual, 80% of their radicalization or indoctrinational socialization does not happen online. It happens in mosques.
It could do.
Yeah,
but there is.
This was actually studied with terrorists in Britain who were arrested before they were able to attempt their terrorist attacks that they had planned, and in many cases actually gotten the supplies for. And so, because in Britain they actually stop around 80 terrorist attacks a year, which is egregiously high for the attempts. In my most humble opinion of an island of that size, they should not be having that many attempts at terrorist attacks.
Maajid Nawaz claims that Britain is a net exporter of terrorists. So they export more jihadi fighters than they import.
And
which
doesn't
is crazy.
Well, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. But you also have something in Britain called the welfare state.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know about that.
Yeah, and so you might have people.
The numbers are not impressive.
And the people going over to the people leaving Britain to join ISIS come in two flavors. They come in the flavor of middle class anti-capitalist who thinks that Islam is somehow the answer to that.
Oh, the new converts.
And the other flavor they come in is council housing kids.
Yeah.
And so one of these kinds of terrorists gets over there and are quickly disillusioned of the tenets of their ideology by the brutal, ugly reality that they are faced with and expected to incur. The other kids were fully aware of what they wanted, and they were going to mosque hearing about the glories of war this entire time.
Well, that's the thing. Do you want to give those people the same freedoms on the internet that you want?
Yes.
Considering that they want to kill you.
Yes. Because if I don't, that means the communists can come and take my freedom.
Yeah. And so that's something that needs to be considered. And then you have to ask, well, do you want a constitutional judge to make that, to sort of sit over that? Or do you want your elected parliament to make that decision? Now,
I would
Britain,
prefer neither. But
in Britain, if Labour gets power, they're going to be fucked.
Yes, I understand that, but also you have the UKIP resurgence going on.
their Labour Party's just been taken over by Islamists.
Yeah, I did see that. It's like communists and Islamists and the Corbyn Party for some reason.
Yeah, they just go hand in hand somehow. There's just two totalitarian regimes who want. I don't know what will happen if they get power. One will have to take it. One will have to. I don't know.
Look, if Labor institutes the programs that they want to, that they're advocating for, like free, like free education, free housing, and appropriation of property, that will turn Britain's economy upside down overnight. They will experience one of the fastest capital flights that has ever been recorded, because the pattern of socialism is well understood by now. And while the former T-Topia and current Airstrip 1 is currently a relative tax haven compared to the rest of Europe and many parts of Asia, which is why they have so many international businesses based in London. While that's true,
London's gonna tank if they
start taking people's stuff. The capitalists will all go nope and move to somewhere a bit more secure, like the United States.
They'll all go to Singapore or somewhere like that.
Yeah, depending on what kind of culture they prefer and whether they think that Western nations as a whole are marching the grim road of socialism or not. But it's like they're going to be thinking less about tax haven and more about they're not going to come along and just take all my stuff.
It's unbelievable how many people they have dependent on council accommodation and state welfare and things like that. They've really let it get out of hand.
It's like 30% of the population, right?
I think you've just got people in elitist neighborhoods who want cheap toilet cleaners. You know, what's her name? Kelly Osbourne was on some TV show and she said, Donald Trump, if you kick out all the Mexicans, who's going to clean your toilets? And I thought that was a brilliant soundbite and exactly representative of your sort of your what do you call it, a champagne socialist.
Yeah, that is what they call it, and you get that kind of thing here in the States as well. Maybe less champagne and more sour beer. I guess that's the new thing.
Sour beer. I need to do my homework on your political system because I don't. Ultimately, it's going to be USA that leads this. Europe will go in the other direction. Europe will go into some sort of crazy
people like to reference the Bill of Rights because it's actually in the Constitution, the foundational document of the United States that lays out the operation for how the institutions function. Right?
Yeah.
So we've got these first 10 points about rights that shall not be infringed, full stop. Period. No more. And while they get infringed all the time, we just depend on having a strong judiciary, which, don't get me wrong, needs to be reformed. Like, there needs to be consequences for bad judgments. And I don't know what that would look like at the moment, but I think that, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, but it's the best thing that we've come up with so far.
That's why Australia's chosen not to have a Bill of Rights.
So well, how's that working out for Airstrip 2?
Well, they sign up to international agreements, which force them to have laws that are equivalent to the Bill of Rights. So, and their argument is
but how's that working out for them?
Well, I heard that up until 1960, it was completely legal to shoot an Aborigine that crossed your land.
Yeah, that's called trespassing. But, the thing is now that they've got a Labour Party down there too, and now they're talking about expropriation in Australia too, and they're also saying that the Labour Party, of course, because they're communist bastards, are saying that the South African refugees don't count all of a sudden. And you've got a whole bunch of people saying hashtag we love refugees, hashtag refugees welcome, only in relation to the so-called Syrian migrant crisis, which is really a North African migrant crisis. And so you've got all that going on, and it's going on toward Australia now too, for some reason, and the international treaties don't seem to be effectively protecting the rights of Australians in relation to international dealings.
I can't imagine Australia going that way, because it's a place where if you don't work hard, you die. You know, but it might sneak in through water rights, because that's an issue. The population's getting so large that their limiting factor is water, and that's how it might sneak in.
See, California was a place where if you don't work hard, you die for a long time.
Yeah.
A long time. This was, and still is, one of the major agricultural centers of the Western world.
And it's farmers who oppose every form of socialism, every left-wing policy. It's farmers
except for
staunchly against them.
Except for farm subsidies for some reason, but there's that. I don't think I don't give the farmers a pass when they take subsidies to agree to not grow peanuts. I don't think it's a good thing.
They've done quite a few. I just don't see it as a left-leaning place, because they've stripped New Zealanders of all rights.
It would probably be relative to New Zealand, who you guys had what I would consider to be, if I was a Kiwi, I would consider what happened to Molyneux and Foreign Southern to be a national embarrassment.
We have socialism in our founding document.
Yeah.
It's called the I can't remember exactly the words are. Something in 1999, the Helen Clark's Labour government did this study where they wanted to find out the meaning and intention behind the Treaty of Waitangi, and of course they came out with a socialist definition, which is care of duty, or basically the nanny state definition, interpretation of the founding treaty.
Okay,
now, if you looked at the treaty, you'd just see it for what it is, which is a trade and cooperation agreement. But the socialist government gave it a socialist definition, and now you've got all these weird things coming out based around that.
Is it like where they take an archaic turn of phrase such as general welfare?
No, it's based
and say that means, like, because in our Constitution we have something that's like, for the purpose of the general welfare of the nation, the Congress shall have.
No, it's not like that. What it is, look, the Treaty of Waitangi is really simple. It says that New Zealand will join the British Empire, and the Queen of Britain will write our laws. Will give us laws, and we'll operate under that. We'll all agree to operate under the Queen's rules. That's pretty much it. But in order to get Maori chiefs to sign it, they promised them roads and schools and hospitals. And this is where the socialist element comes in. And it's all through word of mouth. That's not actually written down anywhere. And we know that's true because several wars were started after the treaty was signed because Maori grew impatient. They weren't getting the schools and roads and hospitals they were promised. And yeah, that's where the socialist definition comes from.
Yeah.
It's this sort of care of duty that they just sort of pulled out of, well, not entirely out of thin air, but out of anecdotes and a bit of history.
Okay, so they looked at the bribery to get that was used to get one side to just stop starting wars.
Socialism,
and they call that
bribery.
Well, yeah, of course, and they call that a justification for socialism. Like, well, no, we just wanted them to. We said we would build them some stuff if they would stop starting wars.
It's quite complex because there's there's well over 100 different chiefs signed the treaty. So, and everyone has a different story. You'll find that the British, they're very good at making allies, and they're very good at making their allies hate them. So you'll find allegiances switch.
Well, they do that. They can do that
all
to
over
the
the
subjects as well.
Well, I think it's quite funny how the treaty says that Maori will get the same rights as British subjects, and the joke is British subjects don't actually get many rights.
Yeah, that was probably just a little bit of a shock to the Maori when they learned that. Oh yeah, by the way, you don't have any rights, and neither do we.
Look, I think everyone involved they promised themselves and they promised each other the same thing, which was peace and prosperity. And when they didn't get prosperity, they went to war, which is quite different in Australia, because in Australia the British were quite easily just walked over the Aborigines. They just didn't have a population density to build fortresses and defend themselves. So the British just walked in. And
as I understand, the Aborigines were spread out over Australia and were still living kind of a hunter-gatherer kind of a. Hi, Happy. Where's your headphones?
I can get some on if you need me to put them on, but
I'm getting echoes.
Okay, yeah, let me fix that.
Yeah, so they were spread out all over us, but the Maori were had already developed villages and forts and cities even.
They were in constant warfare, and this comes back to the failings of Karl Marx and how he's wrong about absolutely everything. Is that he never actually saw a Stone Age civilization. Yeah, he sort of praised it and thought it was this natural, holy thing. This natural thing that
he just read Rousseau and thought that the noble savage was just correct and never actually investigated how it was.
If you go into a left-wing Facebook echo chamber, you'll see them sharing images of Aborigines and really perpetuating this noble savage meme.
Well, you can dispel that with the pubescent rights of Aboriginal boys.
Yeah, they in many cultures actually, particularly on island cultures, men were castrated. Often it would be sort of one royal line would get to breed.
Yeah, that's pretty horrifying.
I always refer to the Moriori because they were wiped out, and they're a really good example of why Marx was wrong and why people on the left are wrong.
Well, you've still got the
castrated their men.
You still got the Stone Age. You've still got the Stone Age tribes of people on the islands around Easter Island, and I forget the name of the tribe, but one of them, it's like boys starting at the age of 9 are forced to imbibe the. I can't think of a family-friendly term. The seed of men in order to keep them from turning into women. There we go. There's something that children will not understand.
You've got all over the Pacific. There are cultural practices. Well, we call them eunuchs, right? Nowadays we call them trannies, but traditionally we've just called them eunuchs. And in island cultures, they still practice it today. They will, if they don't have any daughters and they've got too many sons, one of their last sons will be raised as a girl and be given female duties.
Well, that sounds a bit abusive.
There's a practical reason for that when you live on an island with limited resources. It's essentially population control. It's socialist population control. it's, I mean, the Chinese have their one baby policy because
they don't have, and they don't have a free enterprise.
This is what always happens when you have socialism and communal living, is you have to limit your population. And you'll see this across the Pacific in every country.
Well, if you're in a Stone Age culture, right? If you're in a Stone Age culture and your population gets large, then Mother Nature will limit your population for you, because Mother Nature is not always very benevolent. Oftentimes she is.
Yeah, but as we develop new technologies over time, we become better adept at reducing scarcity. I mean, right now we've reduced the prices of a lot of our goods just by automating the production of goods. So we're entering an era where scarcity is not as big of a problem as it has been in the past.
Yeah, but you see, under communism, the cost of labor is zero. So there's no motivation to build new machines, build automation. And the end result is you don't get that progress. You do have to limit your population, and when things get really bad, there's cannibalism. That's just sort of like a natural law, a natural human law.
Yeah, that's something that comes back with a vengeance in every single communist regime, except currently for Venezuela, has not had any posters put up reminding people of how barbaric it is to eat your children.
Well, apparently in North Korea, there's rumors that there is cannibalism there, that there are families who abduct people and sell their meat.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Dire Straits. I mean,
I think in Venezuela, people are just walking out of the country before they resort to cannibalism.
Yeah, because they don't have an army with the guns pointed in, keeping the slaves from walking off.
Mm.
But the problem is these Venezuelans are bringing their stupid socialist ideas out with them without the realization that that's what got their country into that position in the first place. And so other countries are looking at these freaking socialists coming in and saying, well, the government needs to give us X, Y, Z, and they're not even from those countries. The sympathy is quickly turning to resentment, and I predict things turning much, much uglier in respects to Venezuela.
Well, I made the joke that there's a picture of Venezuelans walking out of Venezuela, and I made the joke that they're not leaving to find peace and freedom. They're leaving to go and find real socialism.
Yeah, that's actually true for a lot of them. A lot of the Venezuelans, they actually think that socialism could work, and it's just Batista's fault for being incompetent. And so we look at the failure of Venezuela, and it's like a lot of people expect the Venezuelans to understand what went wrong. But the problem with that is a lot of them are still too close to it. A lot of them still have the indoctrination that they went through from age like 6 up to their adulthood. So it's like it's going to. I think it'll take the same kind of absolute hell that the USSR went through before Venezuela actually gets disillusioned of its attempt at instituting legal socialism. Sorry, I think I might have gone on a bit of a ramble. Mm-hmm. Have I lost you guys? Hello?
Hold on one second, I'm here. But I'm not speaking too much. I wasn't sure, I was just jumping in the conversation.
Yeah, sorry about that. Well, yeah, today, I've decided that we can just have a call-in show. Yes, I am seeing the chat, but I don't like neglect. I don't think it would be polite to be neglecting my guests. The best answer. So we could. So what's on your mind? And Frank is what it says on your little picture there.
Yes, Frankie Blades. I jumped in and you were speaking on Venezuela trying to, I guess inject socialism into their country right now.
Oh no, Venezuela is. Oh, you mean Venezuelans trying to inject socialism into the countries that they're going to?
Oh, into the countries they're going to.
Yeah, they've had socialism for quite a while since Che Guevara.
Where is the influx of Venezuelans?
Neighboring countries like Brazil, Colombia, other countries that I am not so sure about at the moment because I don't have a map on me and I'm not terribly great at geography.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm not even sure if there is a deep immigration of Venezuelans into other countries right now.
Hello.
Can
you hear me?
Yes, you're back. Did you?
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Did you kind of dropped off there for a while? What happened?
Yeah, I just think it's the connection.
Well, that's what happens when you make internet by rubbing kiwis together.
I'm on 4G and there's a storm outside, so that might be it.
Oh, that's what that sound is. I was wondering about that. Okay, so yeah. So Frank was wondering about the refugee crisis that the socialist government of Venezuela has created in South America, and yes, there have been massive exoduses of people from Venezuela into neighboring countries. And
okay, that's news I'm not aware of.
Well, no, but it's like if you
quickly Google the numbers.
Yeah, it's not being reported on very much by the mainstream sources.
I'm not saying it's not true.
No. I know.
So
I'm not saying.
I've seen reports and pictures of people just on these big refuge marches out of Venezuela.
Yeah, the thing is it's not being reported on because it's a crisis that was not caused by U.S. foreign policy blunder and was caused by socialism. So the mainstream media, the pro-socialist elements of the mainstream media would much rather people not know about this crisis.
I have a Business Insider article.
You have a Business Insider article
that reports on the massive immigration. It says those with advanced degrees have elected to relocate abroad rather than deal with daily challenges. So it looks like anyone who can. This is like Greece during Greece's financial crisis. Anyone who could get out got out, and anybody who would, anybody who could get a job overseas just had to leave.
So you're talking about top officials probably got out first, that type of thing.
No, most of the officials are staying put because
anyone with a tradable skill got out. Anybody with a degree, anybody with a
they're best.
a trade qualification, they just If you can get a job overseas, you're not going to stick around in an economic dead zone, are you?
Right. So there was a large influx of, so it wasn't refugees, basically, it was immigration.
Refugees I suppose you could call them economic migrants.
Right. Okay. Better.
2015, 10% of respondents were working on exit paperwork.
Yeah, and also they have a major illegal immigration problem in that region of people just walking across the borders in search of food, willing to do just about anything for food, including women who will, not kidding, prostitute themselves for a bunch of bananas.
Okay, a poll in September 2016 found 57% of registered voters, or 12 million people
South
wanted
America
to leave
ain't
the
that great to
country.
begin with, so it's where they're at. There's probably parts of South America that are,
Among the many people who said they admired late President Hugo Chavez. So they're still socialists. They want to get out of their socialist hellhole, but they're still socialists.
Yeah. See, but the thing to realize about
Okay.
How do I kick people?
That's weird.
Sounds like a pig. We're trying to be one. What is that?
I think it's just a kid on the internet.
Nice.
Hey, bitch. Fucking mother fucking sucking cock, bitch.
Yeah, it's just a kid on the internet.
I'm gonna tell your mom. Her and I are gonna have a talk after we have fun in her bedroom tonight.
I don't know how to get up my...
Also, you need to wear headphones if you're gonna get onto people's chats, because there's this thing called echo.
Oh, that's funny.
Seriously,
that's the reason I mute players on Counter-Strike, because they often turn out to be some little whiny kid who hasn't had his ball drop yet. It's just irritating.
No, so wait, did Daniel leave?
Yeah, he's just coming on to scream profanity because
I bind you in the name of Jesus Christ, fucking ginger beard hair. Ginger beard.
Do you know what blonde is, kiddo?
Oh, wow. What a troll, huh? No, what happened to Daniel?
No, he's too young to know what humor is.
Daniel. Yeah, let's start left.
Fucking fecal privacy, bitch.
He's trying really hard.
Do you stream a lot?
No, I don't think he streams at all. I think he's just amusing himself by jumping onto someone else's channel and trying to get it struck down. Because,
it's just a bored kid with nothing to do.
Yeah,
so wait,
I know.
Bitch, I hope you have a stroke, motherfucker.
And I hope you find Jesus.
This is crazy, right?
Yeah, well, bless his heart.
I don't know. When I was a kid, we used to call random numbers on the phone. This is the same thing, except
you need to stick a binder up your ass, fucker.
Well, bless your heart. Lord knows you don't have anything else to bless. No, don't insult kids, B. West. That's mean.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Ginger-haired bitch. You need to find Lord. You need to find the Lord Jesus Christ, you fucking bitch. Motherfucker. Ginger-haired ass.
Kiddo,
big cock. Big fucking cock. Big cock.
Kiddo, do you know what blonde is?
George cock.
Can't just kick him off, man.
I don't know how. It's not letting me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know how to block him either.
George Chicken. George Chicken. George Chicken.
George Chicken.
I said George Chicken.
Lovely.
Find his account and then block his account.
Oh no.
George Chicken.
I would love to do that.
Fucking British Empire. Fuck you.
You know, yeah, Kiwi is not from Britain. He's from New Zealand. Space Battleship is from New Zealand.
You can't. There's no point talking to someone like that. They're just
no.
sort of.
Well, no, I know. He's just
on
really,
a profanity.
He's really young.
Rampage.
He doesn't understand how humor works. He thinks that being transgressive is just to yell things that his mommy would wash his mouth out with soap for. And you know, she and I are going to have a conversation after I finish washing out her mouth with my tube steak. So
You can't. Well, yeah, you can't reason with a child like that, especially you're not physically in front of them, so there's no way you can intimidate them in any way, or smack them.
Oh no, I don't have to. I just have to let the world know that his mom would do anything at a truck stop for half a gram of cocaine. So.
Yeah, I don't think I'd let my kids on the internet till they're 21.
I can't figure out how to block people. So yeah, next time I guess I can't have the link out there. That sucks.
No.
Well,
no, you'd have to DM it on Gab or something.
Yeah, I would prefer to do that. I had a great birthday stream with just a whole bunch of random people, like last week, but
children ruin everything.
Well, not all children, obviously. Hashtag not all, but this one's probably getting beat by his mom.
It's I think it's natural for kids to test the limits, and I see this in New Zealand because they increased the population by 500,000 without increasing the police force, and the result of that is we have 13-year-old kids out stealing cars with no repercussions. So what children do is they test the limits, they test what they can get away with, and if you don't stop them, they keep doing it.
Or why are they keep on? Well, it's like, why are the parents not stopping them? Why is it like the cops' job?
That's a good question.
Why is it the cops' job to make sure a 13-year-old isn't committing Grand Theft Auto?
Here's the issue.
13s.
Here's the issue. You've got parents who are struggling to stop their kid running out at night, and they're joining in with other kids, and they're getting away with crime, and they're having a good time, and there's this sort of criminal mindset where it's only illegal if the cops are looking, right? There's no fear of getting caught. There's no repercussions of getting caught. And they're going to keep doing it until they do get caught.
Yeah.
And when you've got a town where the police station has closed because the government cut funding to the police, then that's what we're witnessing happening.
Well, you have money for like social programs, but you don't have money for police.
Well, that's a good question because we do have some dodgy things, some really dodgy things, but yeah, we won't go into those. There's too many of them. It depends on what the budget comes out of as well.
Yeah.
And each party has their own.
Well, I agree. It's natural for kids to want to test their limits, but it's like if they have good parents and aren't being viciously abused by their mothers, like this kid here who.
It's not just your parents; it's your community as well. Because if you got one or two bad kids, and those kids are going to show other kids how to have a good time, they're going to be a bad influence on them. So it's a sort of compounding problem.
Sometimes yes, but it's like if you've got 10 good kids, right, and the one new kid comes into the neighborhood, and he says, "Hey, you know what would be a great time? Let's go rob this convenience store," and say like just one of them gets caught, and so then his parents are gonna get called, and they're gonna lean on him, and he's going to squeal, and all of the 10 other kids are all gonna get in trouble. Now this bad kid might be used to it, but the other 9, they're not going to be very happy about getting in trouble because of this one jerk whose idea it was to go and steal something, right? Like, no, that wasn't fun. It wasn't fun at all. Our friend got caught. He got in huge trouble, and I would have squealed too. But it's like it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be law enforcement. Is the point? It's like if you've got kids who actually have good parents and they have a good relationship with their parents, then being in trouble with their parents will be a pretty good incentive to not have people come to their parents and saying, "Hey, your kid's doing messed up stuff to me."
Yeah.
So it's like even with the lack of police, they don't have an excuse. In my opinion. And so testing limits is fine.
I think there's a tipping point where you have, so many broken families or so many broken households.
Yeah, exactly. It's
like one bad kid you can take care of, but half a dozen, that's a gang.
Yeah, you're right. But you're not talking about just one bad apple anymore. You're talking about a group of dysfunctional boys who are.
That's what I say about every suburb in the Waikato. Is I say this is a good place to live if it wasn't for the bloody kids. My mum's house has always got broken glass outside because the neighborhood kids are drinking, and that's a good area. That's not like I'd say it's upper middle class area now. Now that the Asians have gentrified it, but yeah, there's kids who just go out at night and there's nothing stopping them.
Not law, not parents, not anything.
Well, this is our last government. They closed down community police stations. They centralized police to save money. And they closed down the community stations.
Because centralizing things always saves money. Yeah.
Well, this is a right-wing government that did. This is a very left-leaning right-wing government. By American standards, they were practically socialists, corporate socialists, if that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense.
We used to have community constables, and they'd have a relationship with their community, and you'd know who they are, and they'd know who you are. And they decided to get rid of that. And
now, well, it's like, what's stopping you guys from taking up a collection to rehire your constable?
Well, we've done last election. Good old Winston Peters, the New Zealand First guy. He's like our version of Donald Trump. He regularly campaigns on increasing the police force and bringing back. And the Labour Party campaigned on bringing back community policing, and they joined a coalition. And so their goal is, I think it's 1,000 more cops on the beat, and they're going to reopen police stations.
Or it's like the criminality just doesn't pop out of nowhere.
This happens every 10 years. They pump up the population. They don't increase police numbers in line with the population increase. No, and then you have to have
the criminality doesn't just come out of population density either, because you have you have large cities in the United States that also, by the way, are very well armed, that happen to have extremely low crime rates, and it's not about just having enough police. It's about having a culture that says doing criminal things is shameful. People should be ashamed if they are committing crimes.
Like I said, a lot of people have an attitude it's only illegal if the cops are watching.
Yeah, if they're thinking in terms of legality, but it's like, shouldn't you be ashamed if you're a thief? Shouldn't you be ashamed if you're a vandal?
Well, that depends. I mean, look, I've worked with people who have, out of jail.
Thief and vandal are insults here.
I've worked with people that are fresh out of jail, and there's no sort of blanket statement I can make except that people justify to themselves. They know what they're doing is wrong. They know what they're doing is illegal, but they have a justification in their head as to why they're doing it. And it could be that, getting drugs is more important than you watching television, than you having a television to watch. Or they might say that you can afford to replace your TV, but I can't afford to go without methamphetamine for a day. They justify these things in their heads. They make excuses for themselves. That's the only blanket statement I can really make on the criminals I've come across.
Yeah, that sounds really similar to my experience with criminals. But so the only thing that I would try and like really emphasize about that is it's like, doesn't it seem to you that they were not inculcated in a cultural setting of personal responsibility then?
It depends, eh? No, I'd say, look,
like if you've got this huge chunk of people, and the commonality between them is that the bad things that they did were all someone else's fault, or not bad because the victim of their crime can take it. And they post ex facto rationalize the bad thing that they did to be less bad or someone else's fault. Wouldn't that lead you to believe that they just don't think that they're responsible for their actions?
We have ethnicities in New Zealand that are by nature communal and by nature collectivists. And one thing you'll notice about them is they share their property with their families. It's actually quite funny when you see a man wearing a little girl's pink backpack. And the reason that grown man is wearing a little girl's pink backpack isn't because he's gay or anything. It's because he just grabbed his sister's things because he has no, they don't have the same concept of property rights as Europeans do. And that's true for all sorts of things. It's definitely noticeable.
Well, then maybe when the Maori do less well economically, it's not white people's fault.
It's not just them. It's Somalians are very collectivist.
Somalians. Oh,
yeah. We got refugees in Hamilton. Yeah, they're very collectivist. More collectivist than Polynesians.
Well, see, the thing about Somalia is it's a failed socialist state. People forget that all the time.
Yeah. All Pacific Islanders have communal aspects of their culture, but I find Somalians are even more communal. It's crazy. One night at the gym, there's a Somalian guy knocking on the door, and he's holding up his key card, and I thought, oh, this will be interesting if I let him in. So I let him in, because he was wearing jandals as well. He was wearing sandals. He wasn't wearing like gym clothes and gym shoes. And so I thought it'd be really interesting if I let him in. So I let him in. Then he pisses around for a bit. And then his mate shows up and he lets his mate in. And then another 10 minutes passed. And then another one of his mates showed up. And so I thought it was really funny. I let one of them in, and next thing you know, there's three of them. And none of them are dressed like they, like they're regular gym goers. They just saw an opportunity. And yeah, it was just really, really funny.
To do what?
Really funny. They saw an opportunity to enter the gym and use the facilities for free. Well, and when one of them got in, they let the rest in.
What you're saying is that they didn't have interest in using gym facilities in the first place because they were unprepared.
They were doing it. They didn't look like they knew what they were doing. They were just sort of taking an opportunity.
This is very strange to me.
It was funny to watch because they're very skinny people too. I noticed.
So here's something is all of the cultures
this was like 10 o'clock at night on a Friday night.
So here's something that occurs to me is the island cultures that we mentioned earlier. Most of them are still pre-monogamy. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say.
So do you think that developing monogamy is important for developing property rights? Because if one guy is responsible for protecting and providing for one woman and her kids, and
there are
so then he needs to be able to look at what's his. and not let other men come around and take it.
What you're not aware of is that in their culture, quite often the firstborn child will be given or gifted to a cousin or a sibling or someone else in their community. So they share their children around.
Given.
Yeah, gifted.
How do you give a kid to a sibling?
Okay, this is what happens. You marry a Pacific Islander or a Maori, and then one day your sister-in-law will show up on your doorstep with a baby and go, here you go, this is for you. That's their culture. That's what they do. That's how they form a bond with their wider family and their wider community.
Well, see, you do that to me, I will bring the kid in and cut you out, because that's abandoning your child on my doorstep, and I want nothing to do with you.
But this is how they form a stronger bond with their distant relatives. This comes from their communal culture, right? Because back in
to me that doesn't make any sense.
150 years, they're all living in villages together, and gifting your child to the hut next door wouldn't make much of a difference, because they all sort of, they all fed communally, they all worked communally, so that's just something that comes from it, and it's a practice they continue today.
It's like
I remember when I was
but
living in
there's no way you're going to love a child that someone else forces on you as much as a child you made on purpose.
But you see, that's how they form a bond with their wider family.
But you won't. You'll just resent them for leaving a baby on your doorstep, regardless of whether you can provide for it.
That's the efficacy, or that this is how they can build these communal structures.
Yeah, that's
and here's the thing. Here's the other thing that you're not aware of is, if you go back 150 years or 200 years, some men were castrated, and there were women who were sort of selectively chosen for the purpose of breeding. Now, when Europeans showed up with alcohol and tobacco, these women became prostitutes, but back then they were selectively chosen for the purpose of breeding. So there was, that you've gone from this sort of pagan communal society to Christian monogamous society, and the sort of gifting of your child is something that remains from the old communal society.
I just can't see that working out well for the kid at all.
Think of it as a family that's, a family the size of 100 people.
Yeah, that's not hard to imagine at all. It's like,
everyone in the tribe is related to each other, and that's
I've got around 30 relatives that I know. So.
Yeah, so imagine if you all lived on the same farm, and you all had a hand in raising your kids.
That'd be hell. My aunt is insane.
So yeah, that's very much. Well, it's a very light introduction.
Okay,
to the pre-colonial island social structure.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very good at all.
Well, it
sounds like it would function pretty well for the chief.
Well, that's the thing, is some would say it's not. It's a bit more advanced in a Stone Age culture, because they had weapons and forts and things, but it very much is how you live off the land.
It would suck to be one of the castrati, though.
They did have farming, so this is why they're not they're not proper Stone Age culture, because they did farm things.
Well, they would have had to farm. New Zealand is much smaller and had a higher population density.
There were communities that lived off what they could get from the sea. Chatham Islands is a good example of that. They were considered more primitive than mainland. But look, this is just what they did to survive, right? This is how their societies formed, just naturally on their own. And obviously,
it's also why it stayed on.
Christianity changed all that.
It's also why their society stayed on the island.
It's why. Look at it, in that sort of arrangement, there is a limit to what your society can achieve. Right, so they didn't have writing, they didn't really have a lot of math. They did study the stars, but yeah, there were limitations in how far you can progress. There's also no competition between members of a tribe. There's competition between tribes, and that competition is who is the most violent.
How do they know who should be in charge of their war band, or who should lead the hunting party, or who should go and tell people where to plant and what to plant? Like, how did they know that? Like, if there's no competition, how did they select the best person for the jobs?
So this comes to the Polynesian creation myth, and all across the Pacific, the stories are very similar. But every tribal chief will twist the stories to make him related to the gods. So the archetype of Hercules, for example, of the gods sending down a mortal son to Earth, or, I suppose you could compare that to Jesus as well. But that sort of archetype is filled by Maui, and chiefs will claim that they're just directly descended to one of their gods, and so the chief's word is and there's also shamanism as well, but basically there's a think of it as a series of pagan cults where the chief isn't just born into the position; they were sent there by the gods.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That sounds familiar to like Native American tribal structures before the Manifest Destiny conquest, which not exactly moral, but it was during the age of conquest when everyone was conquering everyone else. So, but yeah, we have similar cultures in our history on this continent as well, where you had the tribal chief. Not only what is he, just the son of the previous chief? Also, that family is direct descendants from like Coyote or the Bear God or something like that.
Often the chief gets to mate with all the women as well.
Yes,
that's another, and you'll find that their religions are limited geographically. So, there'll be a mountain that's very special to them. There'll be a river that's very special to them. And so their religion doesn't travel very far, unlike the Abrahamic religions or the, Christianity, which really only has a special place in Israel, but there's no sort of specific requirement to get into heaven.
It's not a sacred object. It's not a sacred object. It's a sacred idea.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The idea can go anywhere.
You don't have to go to Israel to get into heaven.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like here there were like sacred rivers and sacred mountains that there's still a major point of contention with a lot of Native American tribes, because they say that they were swindled out of, their ancestors were swindled out of these sacred sites because the pioneers didn't understand the sacred nature of these sites, and the Native Americans at the time didn't understand the nature of property, because they were hunter gatherers and herdsmen whose nation followed the belt flow. They
shared everything with their tribe, which is also their family.
Yeah, a lot of them did, except for the Pueblo people, who actually don't have a lot of gripes with America because they had developed agriculture and property and treaties and cities.
That's probably the defining difference is agriculture.
Well,
having land.
You need to either have agriculture, as in farming the land, or as in herding livestock. Because if you own the actual livestock, if you're not just following around a wild herd of bison, then you can get angry at someone from the Kalla clan who comes over and steals one of your sheep.
Yeah, and as far as I know, I don't think the Australian Aborigines had much in the way of agriculture. I think Tasmania might be different, but
I don't know anything about Tasmania, but it's like I do know from
Tasmania's got quite a brutal history. They hunted the Aborigines down. Every last one was shot.
Oh, you mean the settlers?
Yeah. Well, the British Army just moved in. Tasmania, the island, is quite green compared to Australia. The English just went in and just slaughtered everybody. It's really brutal.
Yeah, the British, the Royal Marines were fairly well known for overreacting post American Revolution.
No prisoners.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, they take no prisoners.
Like, they got beat once, and suddenly they forgot about mercy.
Yeah. Well, I think take I think it was Thailand. They went to the Thai royalty and they offered them a trade deal, and the royalty turned it down. So the British bombarded their palace for several days from their boats. I think it was the Thais, and so the Thais had to sign their crappy deal. It was like they just went really ruthless for a period there.
Yeah, the monarchy was not moral in the least. And that's not to say that that even my country is innocent, because the opening of Japan was achieved through a display of military might and a very, very thinly veiled threat of 3 black Ironsides in I think it was Tokyo Bay.
What period was that? Is that before or after the Boxer Rebellion in China?
This is Japan.
Yeah, but is that before or after?
I don't know, but it was actually right at the end of right at the beginning of the Meiji period. That's what it's called. Okay. So if you know where that coincides with Chinese history, then
it would be before the Boxer Rebellion. Because in the Boxer Rebellion, the Japanese joined with the Americans, as I understand it, and just completely annihilating China.
Okay, yeah, I don't know about the Boxer Rebellion, but I do know that the westernization of Japan, after that, it was mostly like legitimate trade, at least as far as state to state goes. But there were also just American businesses who just went into Japan and bought the novel Japanese goods to sell to Americans, and brought kind of weird, novel, brass-crafted American things to Japan that they thought were nifty trinkets and sold them there. Which was mostly just trinket exchange between America and Japan for almost 100 years. So, and then the war party coerced the emperor into relinquishing his control of the country. the country over to the cabinet, and they decided it would be a great idea to bomb Pearl Harbor. But that's a few decades later.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, the Pacific is just. I don't think people talk about the Pacific enough. Everyone's always just wrapped up in Europe and the relation between America and Europe, but there's actually a lot of really interesting history, and I'm actually glad that you came on to talk about it. But we've gone about 20 minutes over, and it sounds like you kind of exhausted what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
So if you want to go ahead and plug some things before signing off, then now's your chance. Like Twitter handle, YouTube.
Don't stalk me on Twitter.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm trying to get banned off it.
All right. Well, see, what you do is you start quote tweeting. All right. So here's how you do that. You find the DSA and you start quote tweeting them about how they're wrong about everything, and they will start reporting the hell out of you. So just do that.
Today I've started posting pictures of European paganism, and openly inviting people to accuse me of dog whistling. So I'm going to try that. I want to do something different to other people. I don't want to do what Owen Benjamin did and just flat out slander people and make rude jokes.
He didn't slander anyone, but he wasn't being polite.
No, he was not being polite. Just follow me on. Get everyone on Gab. Fuck Twitter.
Yes, please. Fucktwitter.com, by the way.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, type it in. Do it. It's amazing. But yeah, so it's been a great call. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Links to the places are in the description, so please follow those, and never forget that socialism always ends in starvation and genocide.